So basically, before JDK 1.5, so why we need the generics? So as we already know that there are some certain concepts, right? Before reading or this going to in Java, we basically know that there is a three questions are every time you should have. That's why we are using it, what it is, and then how to use it. If you know the three questions and the answers for three, right, then you will be very much clear about it, right? So basically, why we are using the generics? If there are no generics, then how we played with this Java basic APIs and other things, right? And what was the problem? So typecasting and other things are making a challenges. So JDK 1.5 introduced several extensions in programming language. So JDK 1.5 was a major release, and there are so many things has been added. Included, we have seen that concurrent packages added into a JDK 1.5 like that. So generic was also added here, right? So basically, majorly we will just see about what is the generic and why we are using it. Okay. So generic allows you to abstract over type. The most common example of container types such as those are collection array. So just like a collection, so basically defining a particular type, okay, or let's say if you are just in we define I here we are just using a collections is a list. So my list is new list. So here if you are just defining like this in statement first, you won't be able to understand what type of it is, right? So whenever in the second line, basically in earlier days, you will add any type of object you can add it here, right? But when you are iterating and you are retrieving these objects from the collections or from any other type, then you need to typecast it, right? So the cast is line number is slightly annoying in this type of casting, whatever we have written. Typically, the programmer knows that what kind of data has been placed into particular. Now also programmer need to understand this list contains a what type of objects. You can also insert integer, you can insert a string, you can insert anything. This list will accept anything, any type of that. But when you are doing a casting, then you are just doing an integer. Then programmer should be aware that what kind of a data we should iterating when we are iterating. So that's why it is a majorly the question is how this and this particularly when we are typecasting is very much important, right? So we know that, right? One of the you can say exercise we have done when we have created one array with the object type. So at that time I told you, so this object is a base class or super class for all the classes. So if you will create any type of list or anything, it's an object type, so it will be returning basically any it will so any type of object, Java object, either custom or general objects, you can accept it, right? So this object, the compiler can only guarantee that object will be written by the iterator. So it is returning the object is the base is the main superclass. Then you are casting into a basically integer, right? To ensure that assignment to a variable of type integer is type safe, the cast is required because you need to do the casting is very much important. So, but there is also challenges when we are doing, right? It also introduced the possibility of runtime error since the programmer might be mistaken. So if you insert any other string value, any other different values, then mistakenly you can face this kind of issues as well, right? Even though this typecasting is very much required, but at runtime when you are taking the object, retrieving and then doing the timecasting, it can create so much problem. And in basically sometimes it is really making a problems, right? The thing is that if let's say somebody has exposed the API, right, you call the function and then you get the list, and then when you are iterating at the list at your client side, when you are just processing the result, something like that, at this moment you are not aware what kind of a data it is. It is a really very difficult, right? If you have a created list and you yourself is just doing iteration, then it is completely okay, right? So what if the programmer could actually express their intent and make it a list of being a restricted to contain a particular data type. So if you restrict that particular list or any collections is a particular type, then it will be really making a safe, right? So if you are just telling to a compiler it is a type of integer type of list, so then only we can insert an integer type of objects. That's it. So the way we have written here, right? In line number one. So this is the way we can just, this is the code idea behind the generics. Here is a version of basically a program fragment given the using to basically how we can do it. So here you can just specify what kind of a type of list. So the type we can specify like this. So you can just less than arrow, integer, greater than, and then you can just and then integer. So here you don't require any casting, and you are also safe, and basically anybody is using this list at the client side, that is also safe. So this is a basically a very important concept with respect to collections. We also see that when we are using this particular concepts, right, in our, so that is we have covered it, right? So now you can also think that we have accomplished to move a clutter around instead of cast the integer, right? So basically we have removed that casting, right? And we have already defined the type of the integer is basically here. So the compiler will guarantee that this is a basically type of integer only, right? So this is the, actually we can say it improves the readability and the robustness of the code. Now defining the simple generics. So what is the simple generics? Here are small, except from the definition of the interface is basically list and iterator. So you can just say that list E, right? So what is this list E? This list is basically type of integer or any type whatever we can, so you can just see that it will add only these kind of an objects only into that list. You can iterate, or if you wanted to process, so this is just a simple example. So these are basically also have some flavor of a collection. So here we also say that, so here collection list is basically there is a different type of, so list is a basically interface, and like array list, linked list, these are implementing the list interface, right? So when we are using the interface, so we, so this is the way basically any collections which we are using, let's say linked list, array list, like that, you, if whenever we have seen that we have created an integer type of list. So whatever the E is a type of the object. So this is the way you can just see, and you can, whenever you are iterating, also when you are adding anything into a list, so add functions we have available with the list. So you can add that type of object only. Okay. So this is the way basically we can just see that how you can add and you can just use it. So these are basically very when we are saying that majorly it is just for taking care of the typecasting and the particularly to making the safe uh, type safe objects basically. Okay, so this is a basically overall concept is for as for making the type safe programming. Now we also have that generics and the subtypes. So if let's say let's understand the generics is the following. Basically, here is the subtypes means any other child class. That is a basically subtypes, right? So string is also basically an object type, right? In Java we already know that. An object is the superclass for. So in that case, basically this, if this list is basically type of strings, which is only taking the string type of objects, either when we are iterating this list or adding or anything. So this basically array list. So array list is a basically one type of collection it is, and then we are just storing it. So object. if we have another type of object type of list. So if we have created, but we are just assigning this list of string type of list inside the object type of list, because string is a subtype of a object. You got it? So that is also you can use. So line number one is certainly legal, but in what is will happen in the line number two? So list of strings and list of objects. So here we are assigning the list of objects in the list of string, right? Just like we have seen then when we are creating objects, and when we have seen the overriding, we are just assigning or storing that object of subclass into a superclass reference variable, something like that, right? In the same way, if you have any other custom type of objects, right? Let's say if you have just Maruti car, a Maruti car has a superclass, but Maruti Baleno is like that. So if you have a list of Maruti Baleno, you can store into a list of Maruti cars like that, or driver or persons like that. So that's the way you can store into a superclass list. You can store that subclass list. Now, wildcard is really, you will see, and it is sometimes really question mark like that. Now, what is a wildcard? So basically, we need to will understand that. Still, again, it is related to typecasting and object related. So the problem of writing a routine that print all the elements. So basically, if we have any collection like a list or anything, so if you wanted to iterate, if you wanted to get all the details from these collections, right? So we basically do the iterator, c dot iterator, and we will make the for loop, and this is the way we just take that from any collection. So this is a basically iterator. We use that iterator over there. Right. So even we can also do basically using the collections object generics, how you can make the generics, right? So we can just do basically void print collection object, and then we can make that. This is a basically a for loop where we can just type of the object reference and the basically collection, and this is a reference variable for the object. So this is the way we can print it, right? So this for loop is also, this is the way also you can write a for loop when we can specify the type of that particular element. So this new version is much more useful kind of a collections basically. So this is a basically here is demonstrate is not a super type all kind of a collection. So how we can just do this wildcard basically. So what is if the super type of all kinds of collections? Means if you are feeling that there is a unknown type of collections, either you can use the object, just tell to compiler yes, so any type of collections you can process from here. But if let's say if you don't want it to process this any object type, then you will have that unknown type. So we will use that question mark. That is a basically a wildcard. So that is a collection whose element types of matches anything. It is called as a wildcard type. So we can write the wildcard type like this. Question mark, right? Like this. So now we can call it with the type of collection. Notice inside a print collection. So if let's say collections question mark new array list string and c dot add new object, there is a, you will see the compiler type. Now you have to basically add only a string type.
Hello, Ashish.
Just hold on, hold on. So for we cannot add the objects to it, and the add method takes the type of e. So basically unknown type, whenever we wanted to process with the unknown type, collection of unknown or any other class with the unknown type of, right, unknown type of, so in that type we can just do like this. So since we don't know that what the collection element type of C stands, so we cannot add the objects to it, right? Because if you, let's say, this C is a type of a string, or C is a type of integer, or C is type of a float, or maybe any custom objects, right? Till that time, if you are not aware what type it is, then you won't be able to edit, correct? So this is the problem in this line. So that is the basis. The add method takes argument of type E, the element type of E collections, right? When the actual type parameter is question mark, it stands for some unknown type. Unknown type means even you are not aware. So any parameter we pass to add would have to be a subtype of this unknown type. So any type of parameter you can add it. Since we don't know what type is that, we cannot pass anything. The sole execution exception is null, right? Which is a member of every type. So now we will see if whenever we call a get. So get is another functions when you wanted to retrieve some of the properties or something from the particular collections, right? Either from this. So we can see that how you can use that get. So here we are basically seeing that both the things. One is for collections also we see some of the major flavor is with the collections, right? When you are inserting anything, when you are processing, when we are creating a particular type of collections, you need to specify it will be always good, right? So bounded wildcard basically also we can see if you are using a particularly with the some custom objects. Now let's say if you created a class shape, and that is abstract class, you are extending this shape is extended by a circle and we override the draw method. Then rectangle is also basically extend the shape and draw, right? So public class canvas and then draw, and here also will be this. So any drawing will typically contains a number of shapes. Either it will be rectangle or circle. So circle has its own type of design, rectangle has its own type of design. Assuming that there are represented as a list, it would be convenient to hand a method in Canvas that draws them. Like this. So list of shapes and you can just process it. So this is the basically we can just use it, right? Now the type rule says that draw all cane. Here we basically wanted to draw all the shapes. So either it can be a rectangle or it can be any other type of, let's say, circle or any type. So every type of shape you will have that, right? So any type that is also come under the shape, but both are different. Okay, so now the type rule says that draw all can only be called on the list of exactly shape, right? And it cannot be, for instance, something like a circle. So that circle we cannot use that. Since all the methods is read shape from the list, so it could just be called on the list circle. So any kind of a shape, how we can do it? So something like that. So you understand that, right? Here the shape is basically there is a two different types of shape. One is a rectangle, one is for circle. But if you wanted to do something for a list circle, then how you will do it? So in that case, you will have that question mark extends the same. So this is the way you can just write it. So this wildcard represents the subtype, the subclass of a shape, and something called as a circle. So this wildcard you can assume that circle extends the shape or rectangle extends the shape. So this is the basically example of a bounded wildcard. The question mark stands for unknown type, just like a wildcard we saw. So wildcard always is just an unknown type. So either you can use directly a wildcard, unknown type if you don't know any type of that. Another thing is that for any subtype, also you can that extends, so wildcard extends like that you can just do. So anything basically which is extending a set, for that we can use that wildcard. So here if you wanted to just add rectangle, so you can just do list question mark extend shape shapes dot add zero new rectangle. Now, so in that case, what is the problem here? You should be able to figure out why the code above is disallowed. The type of second parameter to shapes dot add is question mark extend shape, the unknown subtype. But here you are passing the unknown subtype of a shape. Since we don't know what type it is, we don't know it is a super type of rectangle. It might or might not be such a super type, so isn't safe to pass a rectangle there. So it might or might not be safe. So that is a basically, so when you are saying new rectangle, it's a basically a wildcard. So these are the basically some concepts, right? Now if you will just see here census, if you have just string question mark extends the person. So basically it is also a map. There is another type of when we talk about in the collections, there is also a separate hierarchy in the family of a map. So there is a two parameters where one is a key, one is a values. So if the string is a key and this extends the person is a value, right? So here we will say the driver extends the value, right? So this is the way you can also write it, like k and b. So in the same way you can also define the particular objects and the details into a class type or in the methods as well. So we have seen in last time uh, in this particularly code when we have that threads with call. So this callable is basically we have type saying that this callable is a type of history. So return type is a basically history, right? If you change here something any you see here, so that is also making some impact. So because this particular callable has a one method is call and the type is basically defined, which is a basically very much related to the return type of that particular call method. So in the same way you can also write now like this. But if you something you wanted to do, this is the way you can do. If any custom objects type you want to create. So these are the basically a simple things which we really need to do this, right? So there is another type of T you can just specify here. The way to deal with these problems, use the generic methods. Just look type declarations. So type declaration you can specify. Okay. Collection is type T. Any type of this. So if you wanted to just process. So majorly it's just how you can make your particular code with the type safe so that any problem with the runtime should not come in. So these are the majorly concept of the generics, right? So majorly we have seen that when you are creating any list or collection like a map or like that, then how can we have seen that how wildcard is getting used when we have unknown type. Or also we can use that subtype also. So that is also you can consider, right? So we could have used generic. So this is the way you can just basically write collection E. T is any type of boolean contains all collection T. Either you can take it as a string or integer or something like that. T extends E. So T is a basically any subclass of a E. So these are the basically overall concept of generics, so that we can just use it and we can just process it. So when you are seeing this particular type, you don't need to bother about it. Basically T extends, right? So S stands for T. So you need to tell to what is the T and what is S. If question mark is the unknown type, so that is also